Good morning, everybody. I know it's nice and early and we're all in your smiling faces. Glad you could get here. And while we start, the microphone.
They can't hear you.
Just, yeah.
Okay, is that better?
Be closer.
All right, good. Let's silence our phones before we get started so it doesn't interrupt. If you have yours, like mine, it flashes a bright light and it'll still. I'm not used to this. Anyway, I'm not going to read the entire bios for Jack because if you have a program, you know what he does and has been doing for some time. Personally, I know Jack. I worked with the Parrot Festival. He's a fantastic animal caretaker, trainer. He loves everything from babies to elephants. And something can be trained, he can do it. And he also has the HiRedBird YouTube channel. If you haven't seen it, I recommend that you look at it, subscribe to it. It's got a lot of useful videos, how to make toys, just all kinds of things. You really get a lot out of it. Anyway, without further ado, here is Jack.
There we go. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and jump right into this. So this presentation, Feathered Fun, it's all about how to utilize enrichment programming for your animals. So we're going to be talking about how to develop an enrichment program, scheduling it, documenting it, evaluating its effectiveness. Before we get started, I'll just tell you a little bit more about me. So I have been, as you can tell from some of those photos, a professional animal caretaker for a long time. Oh, I was so young. I have worked with so many really cool animals, but since it is the American Federation of Aviculture, I figured I would show you some of my favorites. Obviously, holding a shoebill stork is something not many people have experienced. There's also a saddlebill stork down at the bottom. One of my favorite photos, that far left, is me holding a critically endangered red-crowned crane chick. And this right here is one of my favorites as well, because with HiRedBird, I've been doing things online to try to promote education, discussion, helping people find new ways to take better care of their animals. But I've also started doing educational programming for kids. So I will go to schools, libraries, get them exposed to what is possible with working with animals, with training, and honestly, to me, that is one of the most important things that anyone can do, inspiring the next generation to care about animals, to care about birds in particular, here at the American Federation of Aviculture. So if you guys ever get the opportunity to try to inspire kids working with birds, I definitely encourage you to take it. I am also known as one of the people running Parrot Festival. The National Parrot Rescue and Preservation Foundation puts on Parrot Festival in January in Houston, Texas, every single year. It has been described as the most joyous gathering of parrot enthusiasts in the world. This year we are actually going to be celebrating our 25th anniversary. And if you guys go to the Parrot Festival table in the vendor hall, you're actually able to sign up for discounted registration for Parrot Festival this year if you do that over at that table. Now, the first thing we're going to ask ourselves, because the American Federation of Aviculture gets a lot of different aviculturists, who is going to benefit from this talk? Or realistically, can you nap while I'm rambling on? So these ideas are going to be useful for pretty much any type of aviculturist. If you are just a pet owner, if you work with a rescue, if you take in birds that have some challenges, either medical or behavioral, if you are a breeder trying to produce more birds, if you are a zoo or a private institution, all of these ideas can be applicable to you in your collection. And they are scalable. So if you have one bird, if you have 300 birds, you can apply these ideas to your collection, and you can pick and choose which of these aspects you like. It is not a take everything. If there's something in particular you like and you dislike everything else I talk about, you can ignore that stuff and just pick the one thing that you like.
We've got some low volume in the Zoom, folks. Let's see what's going on inside the chat.
Okay. Because I am certainly not known for low volume.
Yeah. Just change the microphone gain on the Zoom settings. Hey folks, is this better? Looks like we have good gain now. All right, chat, if you continue, I will monitor this back on video.
Okay. So the first thing you have to ask ourselves is, what is enrichment? And for me, this photo right here actually describes enrichment pretty well. Because enrichment can be so many different things. There is an orangutan on a tricycle having an absolutely fabulous time. That is enrichment. There's a child running away from the orangutan on a tricycle. That is also enrichment. So what is enrichment, and more importantly, do your animals need it? Enrichment is anything that encourages your animal to interact with or think about their environment. That's it. It doesn't have to be overly complex. It's just something that causes them to think about their interactions with their environment. And the natural world provides a lot of enrichment. Sometimes too much enrichment. We see this with our birds in our home. If our birds react to seeing a hawk outside a window, that is enrichment. In the wild, if the hawk chases down and grabs that bird, that is also enrichment, but again, maybe a little bit too much. So enrichment needs to be thought of as anything that encourages your animal to think about their environment, and it includes pretty much anything you can think of. So toys are going to be one of the most common things that people think about when it comes to enrichment. Training is going to be very, very important. Exercise, diet can have a tremendous impact on their environment, their thought process, their well-being, their hormones. Socialization is very, very important. Changes to the environment. Changes to the environment is going to be very, very important, and the reason that I used this photo, even though I was tired and grumpy, and that is not the best photo of me, is that it showcases a lot of different things that can be going on, and all of these little things can have an impact on the care in your relationship with your bird. That can have an impact on enrichment. That can have an impact on training. That can have an impact on just your day-to-day interactions. So to give you guys an example of some different things that I would think about looking at this photo, that bird right there, that is a green-winged macaw named Minnie. She has a pecan. Her favorite thing to get, and she usually gets first thing in the morning, is walnuts. So having a different food item can have an impact on how she's feeling about the day. As you can see from the background, it was very, very foggy that morning. So that visual change can have an impact on how things are going to go. I'm wearing sunglasses, which isn't something that I always do. So all of these little things are just going to be things that you need to start thinking about, because they can have an impact and a change on what is going on. Connie, it says that I am currently signed out of Zoom because it is signed on to another device.
Oh, look,
But
that
it's
means someone else who
enrichment.
has the president email is opening Zoom right now. Let's fix this.
You're being enriched right now, Jack.
Exactly. Yeah, not all enrichment is positive. So,
Biologically relevant.
Negative.
and this also probably demonstrates that for me, this is a little bit of enrichment. For Connie, probably too much.
I would like to think that this is a chronic stress situation as opposed to helping me elevate my biological features.
This one dude on here is watching faithfully.
Watch, they're gonna do it again. Sorry, we're the peanut gallery's talking.
I'm gonna guess that our AFA, let's hope that it's the Okay, cool.
Janice, are you gonna deduct this from my time?
Better not. Awesome.
Yeah.
Would you like me to?
Hey Rick, somebody else logged into the AFA president account is running the webinar. Did the office sign in? Well, let's see if we're not correct. If you log, if anybody logged into the president of AFA, birds.org account, they would have taken over our Zoom. All right, then I'll sign back in and we'll see if we can find who's currently running our Zoom.
Go out in the hallway and with your voice just scream, who is
I'll do
You
it.
could do that.
I'll do it next if I need to.
Looks like you're back online. I can see us again, Jim.
Okay.
So let's get that running. So sorry for the correction. All right, sorry about that, Jeff.
Oh, right. Okay, so just thinking about the things that have an impact on your environment, which can include any number of things, positive and negative. Predators and prey we discussed as well. So the most important thing that we're going to ask about enrichment, why is it important? Enrichment is important because it helps your animals stay away from making very, very bad choices. Like this bear right here, having to make very, very sad, very bad choices. Enrichment's actually going to accomplish quite a few different things. And I'm not just going to tell you why I think it's important. We've actually got some quotes here. So according to the National Zoo, enrichment gives animals a creative outlet for physical activity and mental exercise, as well as choice and control over how they spend their time. And according to the Dallas Zoo, because we're in Dallas, enrichment helps enhance the environment and lives of animals by providing them with mental and physical stimulation to increase natural and healthy behavior. So, in summary, it's a good thing. But what does enrichment actually accomplish? And Bark Magazine, who was working with dogs, but a lot of these things are going to apply to birds as well, came up with a list of the various impacts that you can see from an enrichment program. So probably the most important one is it prevents boredom. Boredom usually results in problematic behaviors such as destruction and escaping. Anyone with a parrot knows that destruction and escaping are regular occurrences you want to try to avoid. Also things like feather destructive behavior can be a result of boredom. It's going to help build confidence and social skills. And mostly it is going to enable animals to act on natural and instinctive behavior. And if you have birds in your life, that is usually what you are going to want to see increase, no matter what behaviors you're wanting to see. If you are a breeder, you want to see your birds breeding and producing more birds. If you are just a pet owner, seeing that socialization, seeing how your animal problem solves, how they interact with you, that's going to be the natural behavior that you want to see. So enrichment is going to help you accomplish pretty much any goal you have. So here we've got a couple of different birds all being enriched in very, very different ways. So again, we've got that green-winged macaw. She is on a PVC swing. She is getting some exercise. We have a African gray parrot getting a box with some destructive capacity, some foraging toys. And then we also have that umbrella cockatoo Grayson doing a training session, getting socialized in front of a large group of people. So there are so many different ways that you can utilize enrichment. And you're going to want to categorize it. Breaking it down into categories is going to help you tailor your enrichment for your animal's particular needs. You want to make sure that you're thinking about which particular behaviors and reactions you're trying to see. Really, really important, your animals should have a choice on whether or not they will interact with those particular activities or items. If you force your animal to do that, that's when you can run into a little bit of trouble. People who get parrot toys, and if their bird is a little bit hesitant and they say, I'm just going to go ahead, put this in the cage, they're going to get over it. That's usually how you result with the parrot that sees the brand new toy come into the room and they start screaming and throwing themselves against the cage because they didn't get any choice in that before. So choice, or rather the illusion of choice at least, is going to be very, very important for your animals. Obviously they're not going to have every choice in the world. Your bird can't just decide, you know what, I'm tired of living here. I am going to go ahead, open the door, let myself out, and fly across the country. That's not a choice that we're going to give them. But we can give them smaller choices, manageable choices, to give them a feeling of control over their environment. Again, that's going to help boost that confidence. You're going to see those improved social skills. And if you categorize your enrichment items, it's going to make you think about what you are offering. You want to think about why you are doing what you are doing. You can't just take a toy, put it in the bird's cage, and say that bird is enriched. Why are you giving it that toy? Is it so they can shred it and destroy it because you've noticed they're getting bored and they need to wear down their beak, or they need to get out some energy? If they need to get out even more energy, maybe you figure out a way to exercise them. Categorizing is also going to help you avoid favorites. Favorites are going to be something that always exists. The bird is going to have something that is their perceived favorite item, and we are going to have things that are our perceived favorite items to offer. But if you only offer those things, they will lose their value. So getting variety is going to help ensure that those favorites stay favorites, and you still get those really high reactions from those. So an idea of how to categorize enrichment, the easiest way to start thinking about enrichment is to just break it down by your senses. So visual enrichment, things that your animal can look at. Auditory enrichment, things they can hear. Tactile enrichment, things that they can touch or interact with. Dietary enrichment, things that they taste and eat. And olfactory enrichment, things that they can smell. One fun thing is for a lot of birds, for parrots especially, for the longest time, olfactory enrichment was thought of as a negligible category because birds were not believed to have much, if any, sense of smell. We are now finding that that is a category of enrichment that birds still benefit from. And, you know, one of the things that we continue to push and learn is that there are still new things, different things that we need to learn about our animals. When I first started taking care of birds, parrots were not seen as an animal that needed regular enrichment. Enrichment was guaranteed for elephants, marine mammals, and great apes. And any other animal that got it at that time was lucky, and often other animal caretakers would say, why are you wasting your time with enrichment offerings for those other species? We have since realized that every single animal benefits from some type of enrichment. So just make sure that you keep learning, finding new ways to interact with your animals, and just don't get stuck in a trap. I am very, very hopeful for the day that everything that I have shared with people is wrong. Because that would mean that we have come so far and we have learned to take such better care of our animals that everything that I'm promoting now, which some people say is overkill, will actually be seen as antiquated. That is my dream. So we can break enrichment down by our senses, but you can also break it down by other categories as well. And you can use your judgment to figure out what are going to be the best categories for your animals. You can also lump them or divide them if you want to. So things like exercise, we can break that out as a category on its own. Foraging is one of the most important categories you're going to see for birds because that is what they spend the majority of their time doing in the wild. Training is a great way to work with and interact with your animals, but even just general socialization. Most birds are very, very social animals. Browse is one of my favorites. It's just cuttings of edible plants because there are so many different ways that they can interact with those items. Environmental enrichment, things like changing the perching in their enclosure. If your bird is in a cage, moving the cage to a different part of the house. All of these things change their view on the world. They change how they're going to be thinking about things. So if we have come up with our enrichment categories, the question becomes, what do we do now? And once you've decided on those categories, you need to start thinking about your favorite things to do or things that you can do and dividing them into those different categories. And some of the enrichment that you're going to see can be appropriate for multiple different categories. That's part of why I use things like browse as their own separate category, because it's all in the implementation of how I do it. If I take cuttings of mulberry and use that to block one wall of my bird's cage, that's going to be visual enrichment. If I give them small pieces of it that they can use as foot toys, that's going to be tactile enrichment. If I give them mulberry that has berries that they are going to eat, that then becomes dietary enrichment. So some enrichment items can fall into multiple different categories. And some animals may not interact with things in the way that you want them to. If I were to give my bird a food item, if I were to give them some sweet potato that I cut up and that I put in the food bowl, what category would you think that would go into? Dietary enrichment. If the bird doesn't eat it and instead takes the pieces of sweet potato, climbs to the top of the cage, shreds them into pieces, or takes pieces of sweet potato, grabs them, throws them around the cage, and that's all they do with them, is it still dietary enrichment?
No.
Yeah, now we're looking at the exact same food item as a form of tactile enrichment just because of how the bird is interacting with it. So just pay attention to how your animals are interacting with things, and they may change how you have to categorize things. Now, scheduling enrichment is one of the things that's going to make it useful, but this is one of the ways that people can get very, very overwhelmed because it can seem like a very, very difficult thing. Figuring out when you're going to offer particular enrichment items, and it doesn't have to be. There are so many different ways to offer it, and probably the most important aspect of this is figuring out how to make it consistent for you. If you're not able to come up with a plan for offering enrichment, then you are going to have a decreased likelihood of following through with that plan, which means that your bird isn't going to be getting that enrichment. And animals are going to benefit from regular irregularity. Enrichment by its very nature is irregular. It is something different that causes your animal to think about how they're interacting with their environment. But if we make it scheduled and more regular for us, we are more likely to offer those things, and then it's going to be more likely to see reactions, see those benefits in our animals, and just use an approach that works for you. That is probably the biggest thing I want to drive home. The enrichment program that works for your neighbor, for your friend, may not be the one that works for you, so figure out a plan that's going to work for you. And a couple different ideas here. So here we have a very, very basic weekly calendar. So you can see on this one, we're doing dietary enrichment on Monday, tactile enrichment on Tuesday, we're giving them a break on Wednesday, visual enrichment on a Thursday, auditory enrichment on Saturday. So 4 things to do in a week. They do not have to be the biggest items in the world. Auditory enrichment, we can turn the radio on or turn the TV on before we leave the house. Dietary enrichment is a lot of people's favorite thing to do because it is so easy to just say, I'm going to make your regular diet, and then today you are going to get some sweet potato, or you are going to get some collard greens, or you are going to get some zucchini, things that maybe aren't a part of your everyday diet, but you're getting them today. Think of ways to work this into your schedule. This is a very, very basic schedule. This would be a really good place to start. And I will say there are some people who will say that this is not enough, that you want to give them a little bit more variety. If you are at least doing this, you are doing more than some people are doing. This is still going to be an improvement over nothing. So definitely think about if you haven't had an enrichment schedule before, even something as basic as a weekly schedule. Now, of course, if we go into a monthly schedule, we can break it down a little bit further. You can get a lot more variety. We're going to avoid some anticipation because on the weekly schedule, if you have 2 categories right next to each other, your birds can eventually learn, oh hey, I just had something to look at, so now I'm going to have food in my food bowl today. So let me go straight to the food bowl. And if they are doing that, they are not thinking about their environment as much as they could be. They are already anticipating what's going to happen. So using this, we can break it up even more. You can also see that on this one, tactile enrichment has been broken up. So on one week, we're going to give a new hanging toy into the enclosure. On another week, we're going to give a new foot toy. And when I say new, I mean you can rotate toys, and you should be rotating your toys. One thing that I absolutely hate to see is people get all these toys for their birds, and they hang all the toys in the cage, and they go and they buy new toys, and they put those toys in the cage. And you hit the point where there is no room in the cage for the bird. I have gotten birds in where people have had to surrender them saying, oh, well, it just failed. The bird didn't like me. I wasn't able to build a good relationship with it. And I said, well, what did you do? What did you work with? It's like, oh, well, I got it all these toys. And when I see the bird in the cage and the quick links holding the toys are rusted to the cage, that lets me know that things haven't been changed out. Things weren't stimulating for the bird, and instead more stuff was just being crammed into that cage with the hope that something would eventually change. That's why having a plan is going to be really, really important. So this monthly calendar gives you a little bit more room for variability, unpredictability, and again, those tactile enrichment broken down into foot toys, hanging toys, lump those categories or divide them as that's going to work for you. Probably my favorite way to do enrichment is to take a cockatoo down to Vegas, and we're going to, no.
Bet it all on black.
Do what?
Bet it all on black.
Oh, okay. I haven't taught him how to count cards yet, but once I do, it's all over. No, I will actually utilize dice to come up with enrichment offerings. And I've actually taught this cockatoo how to throw the dice. This is Mika. He is a bird that was surrendered to me because his last owners couldn't take care of him. He is in his mid-30s. He has a scissor beak, which means he has to go for regular trims on his beak because it doesn't quite grow in alignment. He is honestly one of the sweetest, nicest, most social cockatoos I have ever met. And so he loves learning random things like throwing dice. So if you use dice for your enrichment items, that is going to ensure that there is no predictability to that schedule. It is going to be a lot more randomized. And here we can assign different categories for different dice rolls, and this is completely up to you. If you want to use a 6-sided die, if you want to use a 10-sided die, a 20-sided die, after you come up with your enrichment categories, you can use that to figure out what you're doing. So here, we're gonna go, if we roll a 1, we're gonna do browse for enrichment. 2 is visual enrichment, 3 tactile, 4 dietary, 5 exercise, 6 environmental enrichment. And this is just a good base way to start, but you know what? Maybe you're saying, I have a geriatric Amazon, and getting it moving, encouraging it to utilize the dexterity that it has is going to be a lot more important than any other category of enrichment. Because again, we need to tailor these categories for your individual birds. We can go ahead, get rid of environmental enrichment. We can then make 6 exercise as well. So now, instead of having a 1 out of 6 chance to do exercise as a form of enrichment, we've now changed the weight of that to be 1 out of 3. So you can change the weight of your categories to be what is the most appropriate for your animal. And because I don't like to have to think about things, especially first thing in the morning, because usually, especially my animals at home, I am taking care of them first thing in the morning before I've even had coffee. So I want the planning already taken care of. So I'll assign subcategories to each of those categories, and we'll just do that with another roll of the dice. That ensures that I'm not offering, if I get browse, I'm not doing the same browse every single time. It's not that we just get bamboo and I shove it in the cage and we call it good. Because again, we have to be offering different things. But if you plan these out beforehand, that's going to mean that you can offer all of these items without you being stressed. Honestly, if you're in my situation and planning these out before you've had your morning coffee, you're able to do that successfully without even being entirely awake. So here we've got the idea of browse. We knew browse was our first category. If you rolled a 1, you were going to do browse. Subcategories, we have things like mulberry, hackberry, elm, sycamore, bamboo, ginger. And I've had to have this discussion with people. If these are not all items that are readily available to you, first of all, I'm sorry. I am from a very warm subtropical climate. I am from Houston. So all of these things I can have access to pretty much any time of the year. If these items aren't all going to be available for you, find bird-safe browse items that are going to be appropriate for you, for your environment, for your climate, things that you can readily get. A lot of things can also be gotten at the grocery store. You can get, in the international section of most grocery stores, you can get things like banana leaves, you can get whole ginger leaves, so those are going to be things that you can use as well. Dried hibiscus flowers. So, if we roll the dice, we got snake eyes. So that means we've got 1 and 1. So for the first dice roll, we know we were going to do browse. For the second dice roll, we know we're going to be offering mulberry. So here I've got some cuttings of mulberry. They are not very big. They were just coming into fruit. So there's a few almost ripe berries. Most of them aren't. And here are some cockatiels and interacting with those items. And probably my favorite thing about this that I realized with the cockatiels, with green-cheeked conures, if I give them things like mulberry with ripe berries, they ignore the ripe berries. And they go for the underripe berries. Those are their preferred item. Doing things like this, that browse, again, if I shove it into the sides of the cage, there's a little bit of a visual aspect there. There is a dietary aspect there. It can be tactile as they go through and shred the leaves. So once we've figured out what we're doing, how we're giving our animals enrichment, we need to think about evaluating that enrichment, because you want to make sure that you have a successful plan moving forward. You want to make sure that the information is useful for you. And this is one of the places where pet owners can still be a very, very valuable contributor to avicultural information. Pet owners are sometimes overlooked as not being as involved in aviculture because if you don't have a giant collection, if you are not providing all of these different breeder birds, it can sometimes be a little bit harder to see what you're offering. But if you are able to document how your animals are getting enrichment, how you are doing training, how you are, if you have a bird that needs medication and you found a way to do that and you're able to share that, you are contributing to the stores of avicultural information. But that's only going to work if we know how to effectively document the enrichment. So when you're evaluating enrichment, trying to figure out if it's been successful, there's going to be a couple of different things that you want to pay attention to. Probably the most important thing to think about, as we have learned today, not all enrichment is positive. Not all enrichment is going to elicit a positive reaction from your animal. Even if an enrichment item gives a negative reaction, you just want to remember that a response should not be traumatic, it should not be terrifying, it should not be dangerous to your animal. As the Zoom feed went down, Connie was a little bit stressed about it. She was not throwing herself against the walls of her enclosure, she was not feather plucking or mutilating. So it was negative stress, but it was still within the realm of what we're going to deem acceptable. If you are seeing those reactions, if your animal is pushing themselves to the point that an enrichment offering isn't safe, that's when you need to pull it and reevaluate what you're offering, because we don't want to push our animals that far. But what should you be looking for when it comes to evaluating your enrichment items? Probably the first thing, just the general type of reaction. Is it a positive reaction? Is it a negative reaction? You are almost never going to see no reaction whatsoever. Now you may see a very, very slight reaction. If we put a new toy in the cage, the bird doesn't go to play with it, but it looks at it. Maybe it's looking about it, thinking if it's worth its time to go over there. That's a very, very light positive reaction. Maybe it looks at it and takes half a step this way because we don't know if that's scary. That's a very slight negative reaction. So the strength of the reaction is going to be important as well. I normally rank on a scale of 1 to 5, because again, that 0, no reaction at all, is almost never going to happen. And if you start ranking on a scale of 1 to 5, then if you ever do have something that got no reaction, that 0 will definitely stand out, and it'll make you question what happened here, because that is not normal. The date and time of your enrichment items, you definitely want to think about those, because changing when items are offered can have an impact on your animal's reaction. If you give food items before you've given your animal their breakfast, you're going to see a much different reaction to giving a food item at a time where your animal is completely satiated. So those things can be really important. You want to think about what the intended category is when you offer that enrichment item. Like I said before, we may need to change those categories depending on how our animals interact with it. So that's when we're going to start having a notes section as well. Basically, if anything was special, different, interesting, you can jot that down as well. And you can do this so many different ways. You can write it on a sheet of notebook paper. I am a big fan of using online documents that I can access on my phone, drag and drop spreadsheets. I forgot the word. Drag and drop spreadsheets that I can just fill out with my phone, because then I can have access to those items wherever I am. I can show other people those things. I can send them to the vet at a moment's notice. So something like this is going to be a pretty easy way to just start documenting things. So you can see we've got at the very top the ways to identify our animal. So you can have their name, what species they are, because obviously what you're offering a linealated parakeet is going to change if you are offering something to a hyacinth macaw. I mean, Janice, how are your linneys going to do if you give them a giant skewer of 2x4s?
Not well.
Not well. So species can be important. IDing your bird, that can be done in any number of ways. If they have a leg band, you can identify them that way. If they have a transponder, you can use that to identify them. You can identify them by location. If they are in a cage that has a number, if you have 36 aviaries, that's in cage 18. If you have one bird, like the bird in the kitchen. And when they were born or hatched, because we are at the American Federation of Aviculture, can have an impact as well. Because obviously, when you start seeing that 60-year-old Amazon, and you're seeing a much lower reaction to exercise, that's going to be expected because they are going to be getting older. Those changes in those enrichment categories can have an impact. So knowing the age of your animal is really important. So I've got a couple examples, if the internet will allow.
Yeah, can we take a moment to load, Jack, as we've got some slow internet?
Okay. Okay, so here we've got some parakeets in a walk-through aviary. Here they are given some bowls that are designed to be foraging bowls. There is some seed at the very bottom of the bowls. There is some hay for them to go through. So I guess the first question I would ask, would you guys consider this a positive or a negative reaction?
That's pretty positive.
I would say that's pretty positive. Would you say 1 to 5, where would we rank this level of reaction?
5.
You would say a 5? Okay.
I might say a 3 because the bowl on the left isn't getting very much attention, but the bowl on the right is doing very well.
Okay.
So I want to know what's different in the bowls.
Yeah. And those can all be things that you're thinking about. Now, you guys don't have this information because I didn't include it in the video. This was mid to late afternoon when these were offered. They had already had their AM diet at around 9 a.m. They weren't getting their PM diet for another couple of hours, so they were a little bit hungry, but not starving, and there was still that degree of interaction. Now, in notes, one thing that I would say, that was designed to be a foraging bowl. Do you think that that would fit any other categories of enrichment?
I would say nest building. That's what I thought you were going to. That's what I thought it was.
Okay. Well, and to have that many birds all interacting with each other, going through the bowls together, would we say socialization?
Yeah.
Then we can start questioning, do the colors of the bowls have an impact? Those are 2 black bowls, but if I did blue bowls, would that change how the birds are interacting with those things? So perhaps visual enrichment is a component of this as well. Oh, this is one of my favorites. So here we have training as a form of enrichment. This is a video that I actually put together with my Green Sheet Conure widget showcasing how training can be used to get an animal towel trained for voluntary toweling at a vet's office. So, okay, with it freezing like that, it looks like I'm just squishing the bird into the table. See, but it's fine. It's fine. There we go. This is actually how I start this. I play a game called Squish the Bird. We get used to, there's hands, there's things that are going to be coming towards us. Obviously, depending on where you are starting with your animal is going to be an important part. Widget, I hand raised. Widget was used to this pretty much from the moment he hatched. If you try to start right there with a scarlet macaw that has a little bit of behavioral issues, that's a really good way to need stitches. So pay attention to where you are starting. So we start with just a little bit of squish the bird. We do squish the bird then with the towel. You can see the bird is not particularly stressed. At this point, I am maybe a little bit. And so we do that a couple of times, as you can see. The fun part, this video was designed to basically showcase how all the approximations can get strung together in really quick succession. But I guess Google wanted me to go through each and every step for you guys as well. So again, we're starting very, very small, very, very slow, 1 to 2 seconds with the towel. And as you can see, we are not stressed. And I did delete the audio from this because the sounds that I was making training the bird for this to keep him excited about the game we were playing, because that's basically how we were doing this. We were playing it as a game. He did great with it, but I sound like a complete idiot. So then we get to the point where he will step up voluntarily into the towel, and then I can just wrap the towel around him. So all of that is stress-free. This is training that we are using. This is socialization for the bird. This is going to be very, very useful for the overall care and husbandry of the bird. So just like we did the last one, would you say that was positive or negative?
Definitely positive.
Positive. Scale of 1 to 5, how strong would we rate that reaction?
I rate it 5.
You'd say a 5? I mean, he was a willing, voluntary, excited participant the entire time. Again, that was meant to be training as a form of enrichment, but socialization is an aspect of it. Getting to interact with that towel, tactile enrichment could be a part of it. Are there any notes that you guys would add for that enrichment offering?
Solid.
I taught him to do this in multiple sessions. This was over the course of several weeks. And then I thought, you know what, I want to get just one video where we can showcase every single thing. Because I can normally start with, okay, here's the towel, jump in, wrap you up, you're good to go. Because at this point, it's all been trained. The very first time I tried, he did everything perfect, exactly the way I wanted. So I believe in the notes I wrote, oh my God, I love this bird. No, it took us 4 minutes before. Now, if you guys need help with things like training, I am actually an animal trainer. I work with an organization called Sea Dog Animal Training. We train things like dogs, cats, birds, exotics, and we do all kinds of training. So general puppy training, basic leash skills and manners for your dog. But also, right now, I am treating a sulfur-crested cockatoo to paint, a black and white tegu to target and station, and probably my favorite right now is teaching a Malinois to sword fight. Because sometimes I have a rough day and I need to get some energy out as well, so I need a training partner for that. So on this one, so here we have an umbrella cockatoo. That's Mika, that bird with the scissor beak. I will say offering him things that he can chew on and that I can watch him interacting with helps me assess the overall well-being of his beak. So he just got a finger trap with some bamboo in it. So this was originally designed to be a form of tactile enrichment. He did get a little bit distracted by the camera. So would you guys consider this positive or negative?
I'd still say positive. He's thinking about it.
You'd say positive? Okay. But on a scale of 1 to 5, where would you rank it?
I know, not enough information.
Okay. I would say he normally is a lot more excited. He was very distracted by me and the camera. So he's just holding it. So I'd say that's maybe a 1 or a 2. It was positive. He was happy to have it, but he wasn't really interacting with it. And again, that could be browse. That could be shreddable can be a category that you can utilize.
So you and the camera could be ranked as another form of enrichment for
Yes.
that day, because he was much more interested. You could see the cockatoo brain spinning. You know he's thinking, he's engaged and he's thinking, he's just not sure what he's more fond of at that.
Yes, and that's one of the things that we do have to pay attention to. Any little thing can have an impact on that change for the animal. So even if you have an animal that's used to being recorded and on camera, you can then have the issue of, okay, the camera's here, but the tripod is different. So we're gonna change how we're thinking about that. So I would say that was positive, but a very weak reaction. I have one last video to show. Now, this one, there will be a little discussion about afterward. This is a blue-fronted Amazon. This is actually a video I got from my friend, Hilla. And this is a bird getting what I call an enrichment donut. I've actually got tutorials on how to put them together, but they're basically just paper bags you roll in on themselves with treats and food items in there. As you can see, that bird is shredding, pulling things apart, going to get to the food. Would we consider this a positive or a negative reaction?
Pretty positive.
We'd say positive. Scale of 1 to 5, where would we rank it? And I am gonna have more information for you after you give me an answer.
4.5.
You'd say 4.5?
Yeah, he's
Okay.
right. Fully
You'd say a 3? I would say this is a 5. The reason that I'm saying this is a 5 is completely dependent on this individual bird. This is a bird in Germany. The owner attended an online conference that I did. She put these together. This is the very first toy that her bird ever interacted with. She did not have any luck getting their bird to interact with enrichment items prior to this. Put this in there, the bird went right for it, started tearing it apart. So you know what, maybe it isn't a bouncy kite, but getting this level of reaction from a bird that has never before interacted with enrichment is going to be really important. So making sure that you are judging how those enrichment offerings are received based on the individual bird is going to be really, really important.
So you kept that hidden from us to deliberately.
Yeah, so we can talk about it. So in conclusion, the main takeaways you should have in case you did nap through the presentation or if you got here late, enrichment is going to be incredibly important for accomplishing your goals, whatever those goals may be. If it's breeding, if it's training, if it's just having a happy and healthy bird in your home, enrichment is going to be very important for that. Thinking about how you are offering those items, how you are planning them, is going to minimize stress on you, on your bird, and keeping track of those offerings will help you make informed decisions moving forward. I think we can all agree we want to try to take the best possible care of our birds. Having this information helps you to do that. So, come up with a program that works for you and your birds. If there's any one piece of this that you think would work for your birds, that would be appropriate, use it, and you can ignore everything else. But hopefully this is at least giving you some things to think about. And before I walk away with a baby elephant, does anybody have any questions? Yes?
I'll just add a comment to the idea of, you mentioned about the skewer of two-befores, right?
Yes.
It's been my experience that sometimes we can bias with our own minds what we think is appropriate based on what we know of a species. My scarlet macaw, who has a nice honking beak, can chew through anything if he wants to, but if you give him a 2x4 like that or hardwood, he will just look at you like, are you crazy? But if you give him balsa wood, he'll go crazy.
Well,
But he just it's his personal preference. So.
Could you summarize the comment for the folks at home?
okay, so Danny was saying that he has a macaw with a large beak that has the capacity to chew through very hardwoods, but doesn't. He only wants to interact with very, very soft woods. And again, I would say that's where it comes down to making a plan based on your individual birds. To give you guys an example, I have an umbrella cockatoo, Grayson, who can get pony beads. And normally I would say that's probably too delicate an item for me to give a umbrella cockatoo, because this is a bird that has used his beak to pop the welds off of cages. He is fine with pony beads, and he gets them supervised, but he likes to just hold them and play with them. I have Quaker parrots that cannot get pony beads because they break them the second that they see them. And you wouldn't think that based on the size of the birds, the strength of their beaks, but it all depends on the individual bird and what it is they're wanting to do. Yes?
So I have a friend, she's a young aviculturist with the
Okay.
first bird, which is a rescued adult Pyonis.
Okay.
And Nova does not play.
Okay.
They've tried, different ideas for enrichment. Other than the little paper bag donut, do you have any suggestions that this young person could incorporate potentially into her bird's life for like tactile play enrichment?
Okay, so I will start with a shameless plug. If you guys actually go to the HiRedBird YouTube channel, I think I'm up to like 120 different toy tutorials. That's going to be all kinds of different toys, play stands, things for your birds to interact with. I would say if your bird is just starting to interact with things, keep notes on what are the things that draw their attention, because you can utilize that. If I start offering things in brown paper bags, and the birds start to use those, I can use that brown paper on other toys to draw their attention. So what I normally like to do, the enrichment donuts that I make, you cut off the bottom part of that bag, I'll use that as a food bowl. Pop it in their food bowl, put food in there, they start to associate that when I see that brown paper, I'm gonna get food. Now they get the donut and they're gonna wanna tear it apart. You can take that same brown butcher paper, start wrapping it around just general toys that you buy, but adding something that they've now started to associate with enrichment and fun is gonna be a way to start branching them out as well.
Thank you, Jack.
No problem. All right, well, thank you guys. We're gonna see if we have any online questions. Maybe. If you guys think of questions later, or if anyone on Zoom thinks of their questions later, they're not able to get them in, you can always just use that email, jack@HiRedBird.net, and I'd be happy to answer your questions there as well. Okay.
Thank you.